So tell me your name and your company.
Chaim Tauber from Tauber Solutions.
And what do you do?
Financial coaching, personal finances.
So tell me more about the use case. What type of people come to you? What type of service do you offer them?
So we have individuals and couples that want to accomplish more with their finances, whether it's creating a budget, paying off debt, savings, wedding funds and retirement funds, whether it's saving up to buy a house for the next investment, to build up passive income, etc.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you the question, the $1,000,000 question. If the budget sheet doesn't match up, what do you do? What do you advise a person to do?
Welcome to most people.
To all of us.
80% of us.
Okay, the 1%. Okay, I'll give you the 1%.
Okay.
So tell me, what's the first place? So in business, people come to us, when we speak about business, there's two ways how to increase the bottom line, yeah? You could increase sales or you could decrease expenses. That's a typical business. When it comes to personal, do you approach it the same way?
The way we approach it is actually based off Parkinson's law. Now, there was an English writer in the early 1900s called C. Northcote Parkinson's. He came out of a book with the Parkinson's law, and there he explains why most people retire poor and live a poor life. And the reason for that is that no matter how much they earn, they tend to increase their expenses in tier with their income. And usually a person spends 110% of their income. So we find that with someone's hungry and he'll eat and he'll only stop eating after he's full, like 10% after he's full. And the same thing is with their income. They spend and spend and spend until they outspend 110% of their expenses. And if they spend on credit cards, then they probably go 30% over their income. So we try to counter Parkinson's law with three things. Number one is know your numbers. Create a budget. Just know your numbers. That's it. A budget isn't a scary thing. It just shows you this is my income, This is my expenses. And the second thing is cut your expenses. And the third thing is raise your income.
Mm-hmm. I want to dissect a little bit of the three that you mentioned, because the first thing is you mentioned knowing the numbers, yeah? It's a very common thing. People run away from knowing the facts. They don't realize by knowing the facts, it's so much easier to take care of the problem. I'll give you an example. Speaking about budget, I'm not a financial advisor at all. Well, that's why we're interviewing you. But I've created a budget sheet where hundreds of people have downloaded at ptexgroup.com/budget, just a typical Excel file. And the first person that downloaded the budget sheet said, could I take 10 minutes of your time? He says, I don't do financial advice. What is it? He says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't add up. I said, okay, what is the number? He said, $7,500. His expenses more than income.
Right.
I told him, how much have you thought you're not adding up? He says, I thought it's way more than that. I says, first of all, so knowing your numbers is not that bad. You know your numbers. I asked him, is your boss happy with the work you do for the company? He says, very. He says, do you think having a conversation with your boss, you could get somewhat in the next few months, the $7,500? And 2 days later, he called me, guess what? I got a $15,000 raise.
And that's just because he knew his numbers.
He knew his numbers.
That's it.
So I think people are scared because the unknown is better. But guess what? The unknown is not better. Right. So I appreciate that.
I actually want to add, I said that it's just knowing your numbers. It isn't that. It's also because the years prior to him knowing his numbers, he actually delivered for his company. He did 110% or 200% of his work ethic and put in the most work. And that's what brought up his value. So the moment he saw his value, and he saw his numbers, that's when he was able to get paid more.
Got it. So going back to looking at overall finances, obviously we're living in a little bit of a turbulence time. And a lot of people say, because there's uncertainty, you have to cut back, you have to put away for chances are for savings, for rainy day, whatever it is. How much of that do you build into your plans?
Savings for marrying off our children and for retirement, and even to save up to buy a house, but we'll leave that for another conversation, is as important as adding car insurance to your budget. Just like you can't have a car, a lease, a finance without car insurance, and even any car technically needs liability insurance, you cannot create a budget without wedding funds in it. Otherwise, too many people struggle, and it shouldn't be this way. We should add those things. So that's added automatically into the budget whenever we can.
Mm-hmm. You've sat with a lot of couples, a lot of individuals, so when the challenge of financial planning comes into play, what are some of the trends you've seen that maybe people don't even realize they're doing unintentionally?
The first thing is with their numbers. When I ask a person, he tells me what I ask him, why are you here? He tells me I'm in debt. How much debt are you in? $45,000 in debt. Chances are that it's $60,000 or more. I ask him, how much do you have in savings? The next guy, oh, I saved. How much do you have? I have 100,000. In 90% of the cases, it's less than 90. So people exaggerate the numbers. They think that they know the numbers, but they don't until it's on pen and paper.
Yeah. It's also something that we always, when I speak to business owners, is when you speak to average business owner about their numbers, they say, oh, let me check with my bookkeeper, let me check with my accountant. But the real truth is they're doing the task. You as a business owner need to know your numbers. Absolutely. As a business owner. You know, you have to, if we wake you up in the sleep, you have to know what's your burn rate, what's potentially your margins and so on and so forth. You can't turn to your bookkeeper because sometimes when you get those reports, it's a little too late. Let me ask you a question. How many credit cards do you have?
3.
Okay, when do you use them? Because I know that you're not a large fan of having credit cards.
Absolutely. Credit cards is the financial Satan, the Satan of finances. Credit cards cannot and should not be used in any case. If people tell me that, hey, otherwise I can't make the month, I can't cover my expenses, don't use credit cards and we'll figure out a plan. With the credit card, it just delays the actions. Why I have credit cards? Because there is the argument that you need credit cards to build credit. I have my 3 credit cards. I use it twice. First, each card, $5 once a year. Every year, every January. I remember it's January, the beginning of the year. I swipe each card, online organization, donation platform, swipe a $5 charge, and then I pay it off immediately. That's enough to build your credit. And the second is whenever I travel, I take along my credit card. Now for the entire trip, I use debit, and even if there's Chase charges a 3% foreign transaction fee, I'm okay with that. Capital One has no foreign transaction fee. That's even better. But I use debit. I use debit for the car rental. Most car rentals accepted. But there are sometimes the case that the car rental, in minor cases, the hotel, they require a credit card, and that's why I take it along in case it's necessary, and then I pay it off immediately.
Beautiful. So one more thing for our listeners that are listening to you, and what is a piece of advice you would give them that they can actually do immediately to start getting a little better handle on their finances?
Identify your financial goals. Identify what you want to accomplish. Create a list. I want to become debt-free. I want to buy a house. I want to save up to marry off my children. Write it down on a piece of paper. Everyone has all those goals in their brain, in their mind. But write it down on a piece of paper, and then the actions will follow.
It's so important. How can people find out more about you?
Taubersolutions.com, or they can call the office, 845-322-6500.
There you have it. If you wanna get a handle on your finances, identify first your goals. What do you want to do with the money? Do you want to buy a house, pay off debt, whatever it is? Because once you understand where you want to go and you know your numbers, you could achieve miracles.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.